Hi guys, I'm here to do the herb of the week. It's February. I said I was gonna start in February and here we go. So we are starting off with violet herb. Yes, this is gonna be very important for some of us who are suffering from like dry coughs, dry sinuses, dry eyes, dry skin. It's that time of the year when it's like cold and we have dry skin, but we're also still recuperating from all those viruses that came through here, you know, in the around the holiday time. A lot of folks are dealing with like lingering coughs and lingering sinus infections and things like that, and sore throats from either, you know, COVID or from other, you know, the flu or RSV, name it. So, I mean, even pink eye was running rampant around here. So this is what the violet dried leaf looks like. Yes, and it's a she. So let me just tell you what they say about it. The modern herbal dispensatory. Latin name is Viola odorata. Odorata. I don't do well with these Latin names, just letting you know now. Violet is a good remedy for cooling heat and relieving congestion in the lymphatic and the respiratory systems. So the lymphatic system, for those that don't know, is like the sewer system of the body. It's where all the cellular waste drains, and then it gets pushed back into the bloodstream, which then goes through to the liver to get cleaned out. So when we get sick and we have like swollen lymph nodes, that's usually a sign that there's some type of infection in the body, because there's like stagnant lymph there, you know, swelling. So that tells you that some flushing needs to happen with the lymph system. It needs a little help. So the lymphatic system is technically part of the immune system, but it runs kind of in parallel with the circulatory system. They all work together. So anyway, there's no known warnings for this herb, which is good. So it's safe for pregnant women. It's safe for you if you're breastfeeding. It's also safe for children. I would say at least children over 2. Its energetics are that it's cooling and moistening, which is what we need right now, especially for people that are dealing with dryness. Its properties are that it's demulcent and lymphatic. Again, that means it's moistening and it works in the lymphatic system. Its dosage forms, it can be taken as a standard infusion, 4 to 8 ounces 3 times daily. So that's basically like your typical brewed tea. It can also be taken as a fresh leaf tincture, a 1-to-2 ratio, 95% alcohol. Or you can do dried leaf, which is what I showed you. You can make a dried leaf tincture, a 1-to-5 ratio, 60% alcohol, 1 to 5 milliliters. You always need more potent alcohol or alcohol per volume when you're working with fresh herbs versus with dried herbs. Tend to be more potent, and so then you can use lower alcohol per volume. Just an FYI. So, all right, let's talk a little bit more in depth about violet and what it does. So, it's got some other names. So, it's violet is the most common name, but it's also called wild pansy. It's called viola. And a name that was called back in the day was heart's ease, because it's known to help with emotional blockages too. Because y'all know how I feel about that. Anything emotional that you don't deal with presents itself physically. So all these herbs work emotionally, but this one in particular is known to bring joy to your life. So you can use the flowers and the leaves of the plant. So, you know, in spring when these things bloom, you could just harvest them, pick them out the ground yourself, and you can use the fresh flowers and the leaves. You can use them fresh, or you can dry them out and use them that way. It's got a sweet and salty taste to it, and you can eat them. Like, you can put them in your salads. So in addition to the herb being used as a tea or in a tincture, you can make an infused oil. So you could take the fresh leaves or the dried leaves and put them in an oil and let them sit for a week, and then strain it out and then use that oil on topically, or you can also consume it. You can also make balms and salves and things like that for topical use. Eye washes and nasal rinses, which that's basically like making a tea and then adding like a little 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and you can use it, to like flush your nose works wonder for that. And you can also use that same concoction and as an eye wash if you've got like dry, inflamed eyes. So yeah, it's awesome. And you can even make it as a vinegar. So, and that's the best way to get all of the nutrients out, vinegars. So lots of different ways. But nonetheless, violets are softening and they reduce rigidity in the body, like as far as they create like flexibility. And that's how it helps with lymphatic, stagnant lymph. It literally, when, you know, the properties of the herb help to soften hardened areas. So if you are feeling congested in the body, violet helps to kind of like break that up, and so that it moves on through and out the body through the blood. So it works specifically for colds and flus. It helps with dry cough, sore throats, and fevers. So it softens and moistens the dry mucus membranes in the throat, in the nasal cavities, your sinus cavities. So taking it as a tea works wonders if you're dealing with a dry, unproductive cough that won't go away. And there's been studies that say that that they've done with kids with violet syrup. They gave them violet syrup, ages 2 to 12. And those kids had, I think those kids had asthma too, intermittent asthma. Reduce the cough significantly. So yeah, there's that. I gave some to my daughter the other day. You can also make the violet oil, as I mentioned, and use it for fever. So if you don't want to give your kids, you know, aspirin, you can rub the oil on their forehead or their body to help reduce fever. Is that good? Is that good? For congested lymph, it helps move stuck and stagnant lymph, as I mentioned, and it softens hardness found in glandular tissues. So not only does it work for, you know, helping move lymph that's stagnant, that's impacting like the upper respiratory system, so the lungs up into the head, but it also works for congested lymphatic and glands, like breast glands. So historically, it has been used for breast cancer. Now, I'm not saying that you should, but you should look into like just making the oil, and if you know, rubbing it on the breast to help with like, you know, masses in the breast. Cancerous or non-cancerous, a lot of us will have like cysts or ducts that get congested. So it helps with breaking down those hardened cysts as well. There are studies though that show it can potentially help with breast cancers that are resistant to chemo, but I don't know enough about that, but just to know there are some studies out there that you can research if that's something that you're interested in. Inflammation and pain, it is, you know, great for arthritic pain as well. So again, you can make this as an oil, rub it on the arthritic, you know, if it's in the hands, elbows, knees, you can rub it on those areas because it will help, it's got some pain relieving properties. So it can help with not only reducing the inflammation, but also the pain. So there are some studies that show that it works for insomnia. It's not my go-to herb for sleep. However, if you do make the oil, you can drop some of the oil in your nasal passages and just a couple of drops and see what happens. There's, again, another study that shows that has been effective, and that over basically using it for about 4 weeks, people that had chronic insomnia, it showed much improvement in their sleep. So there's other benefits to it. It's also just nutrient dense. It actually has more vitamin C than an orange. Did you know that? And more vitamin A than spinach. So if you're interested in it from its nutrient standpoint, then you can make it as a vinegar. Same thing. Take some dried leaf, drop it in a jar, pour some vinegar over it, let it sit for a couple weeks, strain it out, and there you go. You got violet vinegar. And you can make that as like a salad dressing or something. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, violet is your herb of the week. Enjoy. Take care, y'all.